I can think of a couple. Again, the marketing piece is so critical that it just takes time, and it's got to grow. There's a lot of word of mouth that goes around, and Lee was here during the growing stages. How do you balance the budget? How do you pay your guys when you're selling 54 pieces of equipment? So you've got to have some backing. You've got to have stakeholders, and Lee put together a fantastic stakeholder group to get the place going, and that included state agencies, Bureau of Rehab Services, who we mentioned kind of gave us that seed money. It can be other disability organizations. We do grant writing here as fast and furious as we can. So you've got to kind of have that resource package to kind of get to the ramp-up phase. And as we said about year 5, we started getting into the sustainable area. But those stakeholders were...
Which was the target, 5-year plan to become self-sustaining. And so everyone, when you ask what's the secret, patience. Wait for it.
But again, you've got to have a great board of directors. You got to have a patient board of directors. That this is a concept that is going on around the country, but it was pretty new back then, and it took some faith.
And it's difficult to explain to the vendors, especially a piece of equipment. Let's say Mr. and Mrs. Jones have a stair lift in their house and they want to donate it to Nat'l. Well, they'll call me and I'll say, thank you, that'd be wonderful, we'd like that stair lift. And I call my vendor who professionally removes that stair lift, and he puts it in his stock and he buys it from me for a couple $100. So now that Mr. and Mrs. Jones have a tax deductible letter that says that they donated a stair lift to us, I didn't touch it. The vendor professionally removed it. He put it in his stock and he gave me a couple $100 for it. So trying to get people around that concept is, wait a minute, you're not going to touch it, but you're going to want me to give you money. But it brings in the referral process.
It's a referral process.
And it brings it in because now it's tax deductible for the donor. They get their used equipment at a very low cost. They're happy to pay me a couple $100 for a quality used stair lift, and we're happy to take it and just generate the paperwork. So that's one thing that we did. When you talk about lessons learned and things, my first week working here, I ruined a pair of chinos taking a stair lift out with my predecessor.
Yeah, but he really didn't know how to take out.
He didn't, yeah. So we came up with a better way that now it's professionally removed. We don't have to store it. We don't have to truck it. We don't have to do anything with it. And then the vendor gets it directly, and they're happy because they know how it was removed. They know the brand that it is. They can get the parts. Everybody's happy. The donor's happy. It's tax deductible. We're happy. It works out great. But that concept is tough to explain.
Yeah, one of the big mistakes. Yeah, and I think one of the big mistakes we made early on in the equipment restoration side of the program is we actually started a consignment program.
Yes.
Which the reason that we started the consignment program was because we felt that we would get in some really good equipment really quickly.
And it did. It worked.
And it did.
Yeah.
We got in.
It sat there for a long time.
We got in great equipment really fast. And it looked great. Made a great impression on people when it came in. Except that people tend to think that their equipment is worth a great deal of money. And they wanted way too much money for it and would call every 5 minutes to see if it had sold yet.
And if it did sell, then they want their money
immediately.
Yesterday.
So it is one of those things that sounds like a good idea, but it probably is not the best idea. That was probably one of the bigger mistakes that I made with this program. We eliminated that program pretty quickly. Didn't work, but maybe somebody else might have a better luck with it. But.
And again, I think we were talking about before, and we still struggle with this, is the amount of equipment and the quality of equipment, that you've got to be as selective as possible. And we wrestle with this to this day, that everybody, well, why aren't you're taking one thing, but you're not taking the 4 other things? Well, that's hard to explain to a consumer. So you've got to do your best to be kind of set the expectations up front, because you can just become overwhelmed. And
end up as a junk collector.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
You have to learn to say no, thank you. A lot.
And that's tough.